One of the ways you can find out that you are living your life unconsciously, like we all are, because we are governed by the unconscious mind, try to brush your teeth with your other hand. Try to drink your coffee with your other hand. You will find that, let's say you go to your office in the morning, you have a routine. But the routine is not something that you are at every moment of the day aware of. You get up, you hit your alarm, get dressed, eat something, get out of the door, get in your car, and suddenly you find yourself walking over the parking lot into your office. You're not at all aware of what happened. Maybe suddenly somebody says something, maybe your boss says something during a meeting, and suddenly you wake up and you're like, wait, what happened? How did I get here? All autopilot. Now, what has governed this autopilot behavior? How come I am doing these things unconsciously? Now, obviously, practice, exposure. Mainly in the first 5, 6, 7 years of our lives, we have been exposed to a certain environment. Where was I born? What did the place look like? Which country? What was the culture of this country? What did my parents do? How did they talk about things? How did they talk about money? How did they talk about career? Did they ever talk about spirituality? All of these behaviors we have inherited before we even grew up. You see, when we are before the ages of 5, 6, 7, our mind actually is in what is called a theta state. Hyper-suggestible. We are completely open during that phase of our life, which means everything that happens to us gets absorbed deep down within. The child of that age actually does not have really an unconscious, because nothing filters. You see, if there's an unconscious, it means I have a conscious mind, there is some sort of barrier, and then there's the unknown, the unconscious that I'm obviously not aware of. But the child is not like this. It is just one whole, that mind. It is completely open and it absorbs everything. Suddenly, when that age of 5, 6, 7 comes, all that exposure that has happened to us during those years, it sinks down and it goes into the deep unconscious. It actually forms the unconscious. Now, of course, if you believe in past lives, there is obviously there are tendencies that we have inherited from our past lives. For example, you could argue, well, why am I born with these parents, in this environment, with this body? Is there any force that has been governing this situation? And so obviously, everything that happens accordingly, these parents, this environment, and how it influences me, we could then say it is the momentum of my past life, the karma, so to speak. But you don't have to believe in that, it doesn't really matter, but if you do, we would have a whole different dimension of impressions and tendencies. Whatever the case may be, after the age of 5, 6, 7, all of this has gone down into the unconscious, it becomes the unconscious. And I am therefore not conscious anymore of the fact that I have just been conditioned. I'm totally oblivious of it. And I take it for granted. I don't question, like, am I really the product of these parents? Do I really live in this country? Am I really the child of this dentist or this plumber? Like, yes, I am living under these circumstances, but I have embodied this. I have mentally accepted that this is my circumstances. This is not up for debate. And accordingly, I have conditioned myself, or I have been conditioned to believe that I live in this situation under these circumstances and I'm such and such. And perhaps I start to think, well, there's nothing I can do. I mean, I'm born under humble circumstances. I don't know if that's ever going to change, or I have this body and accordingly this is who or what I am. And so we start to function within this paradigm. We start to function within this bubble of all these parameters that we have accepted to be true, because deep down in my unconscious I have been conditioned to believe these things. Now, what can I do? Spiritual life, psychological growth, is making the unconscious conscious. Like the more conscious I can become of my 90% unconscious mind, the more powerful I become. Because what happens is I become a creator rather than being subject to the environment of my own unconscious world and running on autopilot within these parameters. Let's say if I can chip off another 25% of that unconscious and make it conscious. So instead of 10%, and I'm 35% conscious. So 30% of the day, 35% of the day, I am now aware. Now, what does this awareness really mean? People always talk about awareness. Awareness means that I can stop. I'm not just running around doing stuff because I have been conditioned to believe that this is what I should be doing, but I can stop and reflect and think and say, you know, where is this plane going? Why is it even in the air on this route? So now I'm not just running, I'm just not moving, I'm just not flying. I have a moment of reflection. Now, how do you become conscious? Now, the first step, of course, is any sort of spiritual practice, any sort of meditation, any sort of practice that makes me stop for a moment and just run and just reflect. Like, okay, stop. Meditation means a lot of things to a lot of the different people. There is no such thing as, this is the meditation you should follow. No, everybody is different. We need different types of nourishment, different types of methods. And you have to find out for yourself what works. It's a matter of experimentation. Some people, if I ask our clients, like, how do you meditate? They say, well, I love to walk into the forest. I like to just lay down on the floor with some beautiful music. Others, they say, I have my cup of coffee in the morning. I sit on the porch and I think about my day. What am I going to do? Now, this is powerful because I'm stopping for a moment and I'm reflecting and I'm thinking, where am I going? I'm not just rushing and going because my childhood made me do so. I have this crazy drive that I should be wealthy or successful or rich. We have accepted this idea that this is what I should be doing because the culture at large also, we have our heroes, the rich people, the masters of success. And we are unconsciously, perhaps by our parents, conditioned that this is what's going to be great and it's going to make me happy. And so we are running all day long. But have you ever really asked and stopped like, well, how is this really panning out for me? Am I really happy? I mean, I've always placed my happiness in the future and think that one day when all of this has been achieved, I will be happy. Maybe. But whatever it is, whether that is going to make you happy or not, we should do it really because we want to, not because we think we want to or we ought to. Because the culture has told us so, my parents have told me so, my environment is driving me so, because I'm competing with the Jones. Whatever it is, I stop for a moment and I reflect and I think, is this really what I want? Is my plane flying where I want to? Do I perhaps need to make a little correction? It doesn't have to be a 180, perhaps just 1 or 2 degrees. Maybe it's like, yeah, you know what? Yes, I do like to do this, but maybe I could do a little better and make a little adjustment. That is being conscious. Now, in order to make the unconscious conscious, I need to understand the unconscious first, which is not so easy because it is unconscious. I am not consciously aware of what it is that governs my unconscious. And so I'd like to share with you a few principles, a few rules, as it were, of the unconscious. What is its nature? How can I get in touch with it? The first, you can say, characteristic of the unconscious is that it's a 5-year-old child. This 5-year-old child does not reason. The child wants to survive. It wants to avoid pain and moves toward security, safety. People say pleasure, but I wouldn't like to say it that way. I would rather say it wants to avoid pain and moves towards homeostasis. Like, I want to do what I've always been doing. This child runs a script. You have to look at the unconscious as a closed system. It's like a toolbox. And in this toolbox, what is there? My tools. What are my tools? That what I have been exposed to, or that what I have taught myself in terms of habits. All I got in the toolbox are my tools. What I want or desire has no bearing on the unconscious. The unconscious child says, okay, this is what I got, and I'm going to try to maintain homeostasis, balance with the tools I have. Can I do anything else? No. But how do we treat this child? Let's say I want to make change in my life, and I'm not happy with the way I function, the way I react, where I'm moving. And we pound ourselves, we criticize ourselves, we get negative with ourselves. And what we're really doing, we are telling this child, like, you are no good, what you're doing is no good. And this child is like, well, what do you mean? See, this child has your best interest at heart. The child has no judgment about the tools. It says, this is what I got, I'm going to try to maintain homeostasis, balance. I'm going to do over and over again what the tools I have to make you safe, to keep you safe. It means homeostasis, balance. And here you are pounding this child, and this child is like, well, wait, what do you mean? What am I going to do? And this child is going to, and if you threaten the behavior of this child, it is like, okay, so this is not good, this tool is not good. And if you press hard enough, it is going to freak out. What if you threaten to take that coping, because that's what it's doing, is coping with the tools it has. You take it away, you threaten it, this child will go, oh my God, and it's going to panic. Now, if you put that behavior under duress, and you take it away, or you threaten to take it away, it is going to panic, and it's going to go in fight, flight. Either it's going to freeze, shock and paralyzed, or it's going to try to run away. It's going to hide. It means depression. Or it's going to become very reactive. Like, what do you mean? What are you going to do? And it's going to react. It's going to fight this threat, this change that you want to implement. It said, no, I'm going to react. I'm going to lash out. This is not, what do you do? And you find yourself tossing between desperation and aggression. Because you are the one putting pressure on your own mind, on this child. But what you forget is that you haven't given it any better tools. You see, your unconscious mind is not your enemy. It is a beautiful child. And how do you treat children? You talk to the child. You love the child. You start a conversation. So making the unconscious conscious, what it means is, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have a conversation with this child. First of all, I need to find out what it really wants. How do you feel? Like, do we ever sit down and talk to our own inner being, to our own inner child, and ask, how do you feel, my child? How do you really feel? What do you want? Like, if I'm reacting or lashing out, something in the unconscious mind is not happy. And rather than, listen to this mind, becoming aware, I'm going to become conscious of my unconscious, I lash out, and instead I should be listening, like, oh, my child, why are you lashing out? Why are you sad? Why are you depressed and you need to run away? See, drugging this child at this moment, is that really what this child needs? Now, there's always extreme cases, okay? Leave that to the psychiatrist. But for the ordinary people like you and me, do we really need to drug ourselves? Now, any sort of bad behavior, heavy alcohol, medications, tranquilizers, pacifiers, stimulators, all of this stuff is really not listening to the need of this unconscious child. Like, what is it that makes you so uneasy? Would I be able to get answers? In meditation, when you go deep enough, you listen. Try one day, just lay down with some beautiful music, with some candles, And just lay there and listen. Don't say anything. Just listen. Feel. Your unconscious speaks through your heart because the unconscious child does not reason. It is an emotional child. It does what it feels it needs to do to be safe. Feel in your body. Feel in your heart. Feel in your mind what it's trying to tell you. It doesn't speak in direct language. It speaks in metaphors, in feelings. It speaks, see, a baby, does this baby talk? No, but will you be able to read the needs of this young child? Yes, you will. If you're a tuned-in mother, you will. So we are the mother of our own child. And so listen. Another powerful characteristic of the unconscious mind is that it doesn't understand time. This may sound weird to us. It doesn't understand time. What is that supposed to mean? It doesn't understand time. What it means is, have you ever heard of PTSD? Post-traumatic stress syndrome. There's still soldiers today coming from the battlefield that have left the battlefield 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe 30, 40 years ago, still in the night waking up screaming, "Ah!" as if a grenade went off and their bodies were blown up. This is real. And you know why these soldiers are traumatized? You know why these cops are traumatized? See, we talk really bad about cops. Sure, there is abuse, this and that. But what we forget is the continuous exposure, the negativity, the pain that these guys have to endure, and these girls. And you say, well, get over it, just be nice. But the continuous bombardment, right? And this is built up over years, this pain, this hurt, this exposure. And you think you go night sleep, it will go away. No, it doesn't go away. You know why it doesn't go away? Because time doesn't exist in the unconscious mind. These impressions are happening inside. They are stored. If they're strong enough, they move from that conscious mind into that unconscious mind. And it sits there. It sits there in two parts. What we call identification association. There is the event of what happened, or the events, series of events. And that is, you could say, a picture. I remember where it took place. I remember the person, what it looked like, where the circumstances were, and so on. But attached to it is emotion. How it impacted me in my heart, in my inner being, in my unconscious mind. And so this child has absorbed all of that, and it sits there. Now, what people don't understand, that people have gone through these traumas, and we have all gone through our micro traumas, large or big. People say, why don't you get over it? Just get over it. Come on, grow up. But this stuff just sits there. And time is not understood in the unconscious child. It just sits there. But what can we do? What can we do to change it? We need to, first of all, separate the experience from the emotion. The experience, in the best case scenario, is knowledge. Let's say you have gone through terrible abuse. If you would have processed this, which is very difficult, but if you would have, theoretically, that knowledge is what makes you a great therapist. It's what makes you a great mother. It makes you a great grandmother, grandfather. It makes you a great lover, because you know, you felt all of these experiences makes you have empathy. But the emotion has been attached to it. How do I get rid of it? I get back to that in a moment. So time does not exist. And so all of this stuff sits here even today, 20, 30 years later. The only way to overcome this is not time. Because as time doesn't exist in the unconscious mind, it just keeps sitting there. It keeps affecting my behavior till the day I die, unless I change. How do I change? It's a change in consciousness, a change in understanding. This unconscious child, let's say it has this trauma, it is now trying to cope life with this trauma embedded in the unconscious mind, and it's trying to avoid this, it doesn't want to talk about it, it's going to work its way around it, trying to make life happen in the best way possible. But if I could separate the emotion from the trauma and evaporate it, only the experience remains, which then is, in a way, a form of knowledge, however painful, however bitter, but it is knowledge, it's experience. But the fact that time doesn't exist in the unconscious mind also has an advantage. If a cave has been dark for 1,000 years, how long does it take to light this cave? Instantaneously. If knowledge is introduced into this unconscious mind, and this child suddenly understands, oh my God, this is of a higher knowing, this is of a higher knowledge. You know, with this tool, I could and I can deal with life so much better. Now, what's the primary purpose of this unconscious child? To feel safe, to create a state of homeostasis that's better for my body, for my mind, for my whole system. See, the unconscious mind also regulates your blood pressure, your heart rate, all of these things. This unconscious child is very busy. And so it finds that in a global way, this new knowledge introduced into my system will make this whole system function better. I'll be more calm, I'll be more relaxed, my heart rate will be better, my blood pressure will lower with this new knowledge, this new way. Do you think it will accept it instantaneously? So the secret here is to both separate the pain from the experience, move it away, and not to forget, introduce new tools in the unconscious mind. How do we do that? There's 3 ways in which the unconscious gets new tools. Number 1 tool that we all use and have been using is continuous repetition. I train myself over and over every day with a new behavior. They say it takes 21 days. It's an arbitrary number. Maybe some experiments have been done. There are so many brilliant scientists, psychologists that investigate this kind of stuff. So I can create consciously a new habit. But to be consciously creating a new habit, I need first to be conscious. If I just go through my day unconsciously every day, am I ever going to make a change? Am I ever going to take the time to introduce this tool consciously, consistently? All the more reason why I should be conscious. I should meditate. I should take the time to steer that plane instead of keep reacting and keep carrying this pain with me. But we all know that continuous repetition works because is it not true that we have been educated? Is it not true that we can learn new languages, new skills? All of us do. And everybody who has a job has learned how to do this job. So we know this system works, but it is painful, slow, and it takes a lot of effort. The second way that this unconscious mind gets changed is shock. It's not something that we ourselves do, it's something that happens to us. A bomb in a public place, boom! I get terrified ever since. I'm on the coffee shop somewhere, sitting outside a cafe, I'll be terrified if any noise happens because I've been exposed to a bomb. That's a learning. I mean, I've learned to be cautious in public places. Shock could be continuous exposure to negative behavior. It doesn't have to be a big thing like these policemen that are continuously bombarded by negativity. They're going to become very apprehensive in their entire behavior. They're going to be suspicious. They're going to always be on the alert. So a shock is rather something that happens to us, and it moves from the conscious mind, these events, and it hits through this barrier into the unconscious and then forms a new behavior. And the third one is any method that you can use to move that information from the conscious into the unconscious mind. Now, we happen to use hypnotic processes, but hypnotic processes is just one way. Any form of, you can say, guided meditation, any sort of effort where you open your mind. Now, in order to open your mind, you need to change your brain waves. In your normal day-to-day life, you're not really receptive, you're too restless. So you need to create an environment where your brain frequencies change. We have other videos about this idea of brain frequencies and how when that brain frequency slows down and stretches, the mind becomes more receptive, what we call suggestible. Suggestibility in this case is good. If you're not suggestible, You're not open to change. You are just keep spinning the same tendencies over and over again. So the idea is to slow down that mind wave, bring it down and stretch it so that accordingly the mind becomes receptive. You can either have a therapist guide you through it, which is the FAST method, or you can create your own environment. Lay down in your hot tub with some candles, some incense, whatever works for you. Lay down and listen to guided audio meditations. Open the mind. And at that time when the mind is at its most calm, you plant that suggestion. Or you create that visualization. You create that new behavior. And the mind, if it's in tune with its core principles, will take that suggestion very, very quickly. I must say here that professional help in this case is better because it's faster. Also, the difficulty that we experience is that you cannot solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that caused the problem because I am functioning from within my paradigm. I cannot see outside the paradigm, and based on the impressions and the habits I have formulated this reasoning, this rationalization of why I do what I do. Somebody from the outside can look at you and say, are you sure that the way you're thinking is constructive? Only an outsider will be able to see, somebody of his experience is able to see, like, well, maybe there are other ways. It's not about following somebody. It's about gaining perspective beyond your own limited understanding. And we are continuously growing, so we need gurus, we need teachers, we need people that can show us alternatives. And that's how the mind grows. Alternatives. Ways that I have not thought about. You have heard of the famous Johari window. You look at a window that has 4 panes. The number 1 pane represents that what I know. I know this. This is within my knowledge. The second window represents that what I know, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I know I don't know. Like I don't know how to speak Italian. I always wanted to speak Italian, but I don't know. But I know that I don't know that. I also know that super advanced math has never been my forte. I know that. Nobody needs to tell me. I know that I don't know. But then the third window is that other people know about me what I don't know. It's my blind spot, but it's not blinding to anybody else, anybody living with you or knowing you very well. It's like, oh my God, there he comes again. And I think I'm this nicest guy, but somebody else, and maybe that's a universal feeling like, well, I'm not sure, dude. You're not aware of this weakness in your character. You have rationalized it because you are living within the confines of your paradigm. And the fourth window is that I don't know what I don't know. There is knowledge out there. There are levels of understanding and consciousness out there that I am completely oblivious about. I don't know anything about it. Like I have no idea that that even existed. That's where the magic happens. That's where the magic sauce. You put that on your food. I've always sought out great teachers. It has been one of the things in my life that has brought me the greatest joys, because these greatest teachers, they will rattle the cage. They will tell you stuff about yourself and about life in general that you have completely never thought about. You're like, oh my, and that's liberation. That's liberation, because the moment I get it, my paradigm from which I was functioning suddenly is like either shattered or it becomes hugely expanded. And suddenly I realized, oh my God, and it then leaves me all these different options and possibilities of how to cope with my life. And the unconscious mind then suddenly says, oh my God, you've just opened a whole new world for me, and you're giving me access to a whole bunch of new tools, and I start to function better immediately, because time doesn't exist. Truth is the most beautiful thing. That's what I have found in the company of great sages, of great masters. Truth is liberating. Sometimes it can be painful because they shatter your paradigm, but when they do, it's like, it's the greatest rush that a mature mind can experience. But we need to be open. We need to be ready to receive that truth. So this is how the unconscious mind functions. We are so powerful if we but allow ourselves to open up to the realm of the unknown. That's where liberation is. That's where freedom is. That's where joy is. So, let us all try consciously to make our unconscious conscious and imagine the collective unconscious of all of us. You're familiar with this concept, the collective unconscious. It's like the tendencies and the culture of all the people together. If we can enlighten that consciousness, wow, what a world we live in. We could live in. And so you see, all of this knowledge is beautiful. It is empowering, and we have it in the palm of our hand. All we need to do is be open. And so we will be very happy if you join us in our endeavors to enlighten the world. Thank you so much. Until the next time.